Hello and a warm welcome to this week's edition of Business Africa. I'm your host, Afolake Oinloye. The top stories this week. The spread of Mpox in North Kivu, DRC is escalating, with experts warning that supply chain disruptions and travel restrictions could deepen economic strain across the continent. Nigeria loses an estimated $9 billion annually due to illegal mining. The impact on both the economy and environment is severe, with experts calling for urgent government intervention. And a Swiss startup's entry into Cameroon's beer market promises significant foreign investment, job creation, and sustainable energy solutions, offering a boost to the struggling economy. The spread of Mpox in Africa, particularly in North Kivu, poses serious threat to economic stability. With over 17,000 cases and 570 deaths reported this year in the DRC alone, the crisis could disrupt supply chains, straining tourism and deterring foreign investment. Let's take a closer look into the following reports.
The spread of Mpox across Africa, particularly in regions like the Democratic Republic of Congo's North Kivu province, could have serious economic repercussions. In areas near Goma, where the epidemic is hitting hard, NGO volunteers are trying to raise awareness about the virus among people displaced by fighting between the army and rebels. Wearing protective gear, they're disinfecting makeshift shelters to prevent Mpox from spreading further. Last weekend, local authorities confirmed 5 cases of Mpox in Kanyaruchinya, one of the world's largest displacement camps. According to the DRC's Ministry of Health, more than 17,000 confirmed or suspected cases of Mpox have been reported this year, with over 570 deaths. The Congolese government is expected to start distributing its first vaccine soon, with 50,000 doses promised by the United States and 3.5 million from Japan. Experts say the Mpox outbreak could add another layer of complexity to Africa's economic outlook. Supply chain disruptions could slow the movement of goods, leading to economic stagnation, which would strain government revenues, making it harder to service public debt. In addition, travel restrictions could severely impact tourism-dependent economies, leading to job losses and further declines in GDP in nations still struggling from previous crises.
Joining us now is Dr. Alex Kamau, an economist and lecturer from Kenya. Thank you for joining us on the show. Now, what are the potential economic consequences on African businesses if Mpox continues to spread within the region and beyond?
Yes, the potential economic impact or challenges, outcome, consequences if Mpox continues to spread within Africa and beyond Africa would be dire. And this is because we are likely to experience supply chain disruptions. And when supply chain disruptions occurs, then there is a challenge in movement of raw materials from their source areas to the factory, and then the finished goods from the factory to the end consumers. And that what would lead to is a slowdown in economic growth. And when there's a slowdown in economic growth, we are also likely to experience high unemployment rates. And Africa currently is facing high public debt challenges. And most African countries are even struggling to service the public debt. And they are relying on enhanced economic growth so that they can collect more revenues to be able to pay public debts. So in the case of the escalation of Mpox, the government revenue would reduce, and this government would be unable to service public debts, and we are likely to see public debt defaults across Africa.
Now, how might travel restrictions and border closures impact African economies, especially those that rely heavily on international tourism?
Yes, actually a good question. Most countries in Africa rely heavily on tourism revenue. And in case there's an escalation of Mpox spread, most African countries are likely to experience travel restrictions. And you see organizations like EU or even WHO, they're likely to issue travel restrictions against Africa. And that what would mean is that businesses that highly rely on tourism, for instance, hotels, for restaurants, tour guides, they are likely to face reduced business and therefore reduced income, reduced employment, and again, it would end up affecting the GDP, productivity, and growth of the country.
Now, how could the global perception of Africa being the hotspot for infectious diseases such as Mpox affect foreign investment and local businesses across the continent?
Yes, it is true that the perception of Africa being a source of major diseases is there. And it is mainly because Ebola is largely associated with Africa. Now we have the Mpox, we have the yellow fever, and that perception is not good because foreign direct investment, the foreign investors, they need to ensure that their safety is guaranteed first. You wouldn't want to go invest in a country that is torn in war. If, like we see in the case of Middle East countries, or even countries like Somalia, where you know your safety is not guaranteed. So if Africa at large is seen as a source or an epicenter of these contagious diseases, we are likely to see reduced foreign direct investment coming to Africa at large. And by doing so, the GDP growth would also be curtailed by lack of FDI.
Dr. Kamau, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Afolake, for having me.
Nigeria loses an estimated $9 billion annually to illegal mining. Despite its vast potential for economic development, the mining sector contributes less than 1% to the country's GDP. Environmental expert also warned that illegal mining is not only an economic issue, but is also causing significant environmental damage. Here is more from Tessam Akande reporting from Jos.
Ibrahim Yohana has been mining for 10 years, columbite and other mineral resources at different locations in Jos for 4 years. He has no license to do so.
I have a wife and 3 children. If the government wouldn't create employment opportunities, it is better I continue mining than going to steal from people.
According to Nigeria's Bureau of Statistics, the country is endowed with over 40 different minerals such as gold and lead among others. But unemployment and the lack of government focus on mineral exploration has contributed to the growth of illegal mining.
The government needs to give you a permit, so to say, for you to go in, whether you're going to explore, excavate the minerals below the ground.
Nigeria's defense chief says over 300 illegal miners have been arrested by the military in the country this year alone. There are also concerns over the damage illegal miners cause to the environment and to themselves. Police authorities in Nigeria say more than 20 people died in a mine collapse in Niger State in June this year. Industry experts say the government needs to regulate the sector more by awarding more licenses and monitoring qualified miners, which would also stop capital flight.
When you formalize the sector, you're able to keep track of our resources leaving the country.
The government is also offering tax waivers for imports on mining equipment, which it believes will lead to more investors in the sector, engaging young Nigerians like Ibrahim and boosting the nation's economy.
In June 2024, Swiss African Premium Beverage, a Swiss startup, launched a microbrewery in Cameroon. This marks a significant foreign direct investment in the country's fragile economy. Amid power shortages, the company is committed to using solar power, a rare and innovative solution in a region plagued by unstable electricity.
In June, the first microbrewery in Cameroon began its beer production in the Cameroonian market. Although the project dates back to 2019, COVID-19 and hostile environment delayed the factory start by more than a year.
We have
an extremely aggressive environment in Cameroon. We face 90% humidity, sea salt, heat, rain, as you can see now. And then you have to find the right employees in a market where the best are already taken. Facing fierce competition in the beer market from multinationals, Essa's secret is by producing a single high-quality beer, just like in Switzerland. Douala is an area that is extremely saturated with several brands like Castel and Guinness, and you also have important products. I make a premium, high-end product brewed according to German standards, and here in Cameroon you won't find the same product. As the city of Douala faces power cuts impacting the microbreweries' production, they plan now to produce beer using solar energy. In terms of environmental concerns, we are very careful, and we even aim to operate entirely on solar energy. For this economist, the creation of this microbrewery marks the return of foreign investments when Cameroon is experiencing a very difficult economic situation. The challenges of today and tomorrow will precisely be about foreign investments, what foreigners bring in terms of capital to our country. With millions of US dollars invested in more than 500 employees, the company plans to increase production from 12,000 to 60,000 hectoliters annually.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of Business Africa. Thank you for watching. For more insightful business stories and latest news, stay tuned to Africa News and africanews.com.